M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse.
BadMouseProductions made a video titled Taxation is Theft, where he tries and fails to address the claim that taxation is theft. But just so we're clear, it's not me making a judgment here and saying that he failed. He concedes this in the video, but he brings up points. Not interesting points or good points, just points. And yes, that is a judgment. I'm going to lay the table real quick and explain to people who are new here that I'm not really interested in people moralizing. I'm not a nappy-headed lolbert, so appealing to some esoteric, philosophical, ethical doctrine isn't very compelling to me, so maybe this video isn't directed at me, but more of the usual libertarian anarchist fare. Either way, there's some things to point out here. So, taxation for theft, for me, is true, but I would be okay with that if I thought the outcomes of such an institution stealing from people would far outweigh the alternatives. I don't think that it's better than the alternatives, so I oppose it. I do find it useful in sort of a discussion with people who view the state as some harmless benefactor or appeal to some consistency with small government types, and I put small governments in lots of quotation marks. Now, in BadMouse's video, he tends to distract into other concepts like exploitation. I won't delve into those because those would warrant an entire video in themselves. I'm just going to be focusing on the objections to the idea that he has that taxation is theft and to criticize some of the benefits that he perceives that it provides. So BadMouse starts by saying that taxation isn't really theft and illustrates it in this scene.
Maybe I can be of assistance here. It's not really theft, though, is it? I mean, it's a lot less of this.
Give me all your money.
And a lot more of that.
Give me all your money.
And I'll give you Mrs. Piggywinkle.
Now, this is a bit of an equivocation when it comes to what constitutes theft. Because it doesn't line up with one particular form of theft, it's not really theft. Let's say, for the sake of argument, or for the sake of thought experiment, to say that rent is indeed theft, as he goes on in this video to claim. Does it happen like this?
Yes.
Give me all your money.
Now, if this was supposed to be a compelling case that taxation is not theft, one must also conclude that rent is also not theft. Theft takes many different forms, and the bulk of them are done with the explicit intent not to threaten or enact violence. Shoplifting, embezzlement, some cases of burglary, credit card fraud, shortchanging, etc. But I really doubt that BadMouseProductions would consider that not theft. I also doubt that BadMouseProductions would be okay with mafia protection rackets. Let's say he opens up an anarchist bookstore, and the mob came into his business and demanded they pay for his protection, and it's an offer that he can't refuse. Well, what's the problem? They're giving you a service, right? But Jim, the mob doesn't really give you protection. They sort of do. They will protect you from other mobs, that's for sure. But then again, does the police really offer you protection? Not really.
Give you the right to steal from them. This is myopic and archaic guff, dude. This isn't how civilizations developed.
Oh boy, that'll come in handy later. But anyways, let's get back to it.
Give you the right to steal from them. This is myopic and archaic guff, dude. This isn't how civilizations developed. Hell, it's not how society right now develops itself. It's like that whole analogy you guys keep on doing with, oh, who will pick the cotton without the slaves? And you compare that to roads. Seriously?
Yes, seriously. I think maybe we need to break down your former ideology since you never bothered reading anything about it. Or the one you had after that. Or this new one. But I digress. The argument isn't taxation is the same as slavery, or because a commodity could work without an institutional coercive force, so could infrastructure. It's a way of explaining that there are other opinions out there and that you don't need to resort to institutionalized theft in order to achieve it. That there are similar mindsets that back then people didn't bother exploring because that wasn't the way civilizations were built. BadMouse, civilizations were not founded on the blissful notion that people were always good to each other, sans the occasional NHS tax. It was built on slavery. Chattel slavery. And we don't need to preserve such an institution to have a civilization today, just like we don't need to have a state to continue having it. Just because you can't foresee how roads will get built doesn't mean they won't.
Now, come on! It is true that the private sector uses a lot of R&D, but the fact of the matter is just about every single piece of general-purpose technology was first invented in the state sector. Yeah, sure, Samsung may well have made this phone, but who designed the battery that goes inside? Now, why is the state sector so significant here? Time. Companies flock new models of these out every year to keep the money train rolling and, most importantly, to keep faith with their shareholders. It makes them flimsy, crappy, liable to break. GPT takes decades, not years, to bring it up to commercial satisfaction. Do you really think that shareholders are going to bother investing with you with the tagline of "coming this summer, 2047"?
Now, as rightly pointed out earlier, I said that a lot of these things were kind of distractions, but I think this one is worth mentioning. Yes, the state did have a hand in developing things that we all use on a regular basis, but time is not why. It's the ability to extort large sums of money through taxation and debt and run all kinds of crazy, stupid experiments to help them further their goal in the wholesale slaughtering of millions of people during war. Now, occasionally, a few of these things work out for them, and an even smaller percentage of those things become GPTs. But that's not to say that these things would never exist hadn't the state gotten intervened in the first place. There are plenty of examples where the private sector is engaged in long-term investment in technologies that would later fall under GPTs, even ones that were just thought up briefly, like blockchain. Again, quote, slavery was the reason why we have nice things, unquote. Didn't foresee the benefits of not having it at all. Sorry, just really wanted to hit that home again.
Fair enough, it is hard to argue with the fact that my money is taken from me through the use of a warm, thick gun. But here's the thing, for the majority of us, that is really, really small. In my last paycheck, that was barely a 20th of my monthly income. And that's not even tax. If you look closely, it's just national insurance. I know that it's annoying, don't get me wrong. The lizard part of my brain would much rather spend that money on the latest AAA release game or a bar of soap from Lush. But the fact of the matter is that for this money, you are getting a lot. You're getting a health service. You're getting an education, firemen, roads, libraries, civic society.
No, you're really not kidding much. Now, I'm going to save you the hassle of having an American explain to you the healthcare system that you have in your own country, which I hear is doing fantastic, by the way. But let's talk about some of the things that we do share, briefly. Compulsory government schools are not education, and they're not good. They are toxic to a developing mind. The Prussian model of schooling that it's enacted in public schools all over the world was never developed to be a way of educating kids, but be a way to transition kids with wildly different character traits and get them to be mindlessly working on a factory line and to follow orders. Sure, they learn things along the way, but that's a side effect. Schools teach blind authority and obedience first and foremost. You, later in this video, talk about how libertarians have this bit about how we worship the founding fathers, how we have a great man complex about them. Where do you think that come from? It didn't come from Exxon Mobil. It didn't come from Amazon. It came from public schools. By the way, if you really want to understand how toxic these forms of schooling are, I highly recommend you check out some of Brett Veinott's work over at the School Sucks Project. You can check them out at schoolsucksproject.com. Now, firemen, you talk about these as if they're services that you get, right? You classify this under services, but you only mention firemen. Okay, why not cops? Why aren't we bringing up cops? Oof. Anyways, there's plenty of examples where private fire services are not only work better and cheaper than the state-ran ones, and anytime people try to combat these claims, they usually do it through lying. Case in point. Now, I also don't know why you would bring up libraries being a huge thing, considering that they're probably the fastest decaying government service that's available now that we are living in a digital age, but okay. And then the last one is just society. All right, I guess we live in a society, guys. We live in a society.
No. Taxation is theft. At this point in time, does anyone really care about the views of an ANCAP? I mean, I'm sorry, but please come back to reality.
Well, you know, fringe means wrong, right? How is that public school education working out? Look, Most people in the Anglospheres are liberals, right? So who really cares what a Marxist thinks? You know, Bad Mouse, you have no self-awareness sometimes, and it's kind of sickening. Now, here's what's wrong with a lot of this video. It's very
myopic and archaic guff, dude.
For instance, when Bad Mouse shows his paycheck and points out that he's only paid for £47 a month for NHS taxes, but nothing for his pay-as-you-go, or pay-as-you-earn. That's the income tax. He completely glosses over that anybody who isn't making 11K pounds a year, that's about $15,000 a year, which is very low income, pays no income tax. And I'm not trying to income shame BadMouseProductions here, but just follow me here. But if he came into work and he was making $11,850 a year, and he worked a couple minutes over, or maybe they gave him like a 10% raise, and he made $1 more for that fiscal year, he would be, on top of paying for that 47 pounds for his NHS tax, he would also be taking an additional 20% hit on his income, which was larger. $11,000 a month is a whole lot more than what he was, a substantial bit more than what he was earning, according to his own figures. Now, if he moved up and got a better paying career and he started making $46,000 a year, that's about $60,000 for us Americans, then he would get into the 40% range. Okay, so he pays 20 more percent, whatever scenario, he just works average, whatever. That's still not a lot, right? Well, no, because there's also a lot of other taxes he's not even talking about. He's not talking about paying for VAT taxes, excise duties on things like petrol, alcohol, tobacco, various taxes if he drives a car or registers a car, even if he takes, some sort of transportation, he's going to be paying for taxes on that somehow. Because all that stuff gets factored into the price. As with rent, he's going to be indirectly paying for a council tax, which is like a property tax in Britain, and that's factoring in his rent. Taxes, if he takes a plane, he's going to be taxed on that shit. If you have a TV, you have to get a TV license, and that's basically a tax. So he's completely glossing over these things. And another thing he does, he also delves into these distractions about exploitation of labor and marketing and choices in the market, and that's
myopic and archaic guff, dude.
From a pre-marginalist worldview. But hey, taxation is theft, and that's okay because that's how civilization was built. So was slavery, so maybe we should institute that again. Well, that would be more of a consistent view. A very stupid and ugly one, but that would be a much more consistent view for him to take. But, public school's free and you get what you pay for. Talk to you guys later. Worms.